What's up, guys? Coach Gaglione here. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione. This is another Gags Goals update. I've been around in powerlifting since 2006, and this is going to be another vlog for you all. So kind of in an interesting time in my training career. I've totaled elite in 5 different weight classes. I've squatted 800 pounds in 6 different weight classes. And this year, I'm starting to slow down a little bit. I said that the last year, so the year before. But this is certainly the case. I have no plan to competing in powerlifting at the moment. But I will be competing in strict curl, looking at, again, doing a return to Mr. America, but this time I won't be on the bodybuilding stage. This time I'll be competing in strict curl. And so I do want to just train a little bit more generally right now. So you can see here, I'm electing to use just like a loose squat suit. Just going to keep my hips and low back kind of compressed. So it certainly is giving me some carryover, but as you can see, even with, I think this is like 275 pounds or 285 pounds, so it's a 30 kilo bar. And the other thing is just, for my, just kind of my mental health, mental fortitude, just something I enjoy. I'm just going to be training with the Bear Cave as much as I can. And like I said, is it really kind of useful for me to be, squatting and deadlifting, maximally to, the effort of, curling 185 pounds, or, with the bar, these would probably be less. But my, next kind of like, I guess, kind of strength goal is to curl 185 pounds. I fell a little shy of that goal with the gopher bar. And, but I still I want to just kind of be generally strong. I want to, maintain my leg strength, maintain my back strength. I think that, we always say strength is never weakness, it's from Marcus Smelly Bell. So basically I kind of just work up to, like maybe an RPE 9.5 single. And on this particular day, I took some smaller jumps after I got to around the 500 pound mark. And I believe I did like something like 560. The jumps were a little weird. It might have been like 550, 585-ish, and then it was something like 617. So it was a little bit of like a bigger jump at the end once I kind of got warmed up and just kind of got acclimated to just feeling those weights again, because it's been several months. But in my opinion, the 617 was pretty good. I guess that was like 280 kilos or something in that ballpark. I could be speaking out of turn, but something kind of in that ballpark. But it felt pretty good. Like I said, just on my core, just on my back, it just felt a lot heavier than I think it moved and that it looked. But overall was happy at 280 kilos on the day. So top single, pretty good depth. Again, I'm happy with it. And then I just did some deadlifts again. I'm wearing kind of a loose suit here. Unfortunately, the suit is loose in all the wrong places. Really tight on my quads, but loose kind of everywhere else. So, and as you can see, there was a lot of band tension on this particular day, and it kind of caught me off guard. But then after the fact, I was able to drop it. So kind of dealing with a little bit of lower back issues since I've gained some weight. But as I've been losing some weight, it's been feeling better and better. So I wasn't really happy with my starting position this particular day. But again, I'm not really planning on competing in deadlift. You can also see that I'm using straps. If you are not competing in powerlifting, totally fine to use straps. I'm also just trying to make sure I'm protecting my bicep and forearm, because right now my primary focus in terms of competing is strict curl. So on this, so basically I'm only squatting and deadlifting with a barbell and heavy like once per week. So I did some heavier sets, I think around like 375 plus a lot of band tension. Like, I don't know, it felt like north of like 150, but I'm not exactly sure how heavy it was. Just kind of based off. And this was also my first time going sumo in a while. So you can kind of see my starting positions like definitely even more wonky than normal. And then the other thing that's been kind of, if you've been following me for a bit, you've kind of know that I've been dealing with kind of ongoing shoulder issues, even from football and wrestling when I was in high school. And for whatever reason, just actually kind of my quote unquote good arm is not feeling good in terms of pressing. So in terms of bench pressing and flat and incline pressing, and just kind of anything where I'm in a lot of shoulder extension. So overhead press, for whatever reason, has been feeling good. I've always been kind of like an advocate of like maybe not doing overhead pressing maximum, but I think for strict curl, again, your shoulders help kind of flex the bicep. So I think the front delts are important for strict curl. So I'm going to be using this as kind of like more of a primary press. So I was able to work up to around 200 kilos in this day. It was a lot harder than I thought, but it's not too far off from my all-time best, which I believe is somewhere in the neighborhood of 235, 240. Maybe 240 sounds about right. I got to check my training log. But, so I worked up to 100 kilos for a single, and then I think it was 80 kilos for, I think, 5 doubles. So 175 is me moving comfortably. I'm trying to also figure out if I want to do kind of like a press 2.0 with a little bit of a more of a bounce and a layback, or just kind of keep it strict pressing. I think strict pressing honestly just feels more natural to me. A little bit of layback is fine, but and again, as far as I try to keep the bar as low as possible without letting my shoulders roll forward, because also that's kind of, if I keep my elbows forward, keep a good shelf in my lats. And my overhead mobility is like not the best, it's not great, but I would say it's also not terrible for a bigger guy. You know, again, this is something where it's going to be kind of a primary focus, just because I believe it's going to, so number one, it feels good, and number two, I believe it's going to help my stroke. So this is kind of like my max effort day, if you will. I'm still trying to figure out the layout, but on this particular day, I'm electing to do an OBZ bar. At the Mr. America contest, I believe they're using a Hampton bar. So this is the OBZ 30. I believe now it's a little bit thicker than the Hampton bar, so I may end up just biting the bullet and buying a Hampton bar to get ready for that. Much harder than a Gopher bar, much less of a curve, and your arms are a lot more exposed. And just it just kind of just feels like it's just really hard to get it moving. I was able to work up to an all-time PR of, it was a little bit of like 162, 163 pounds. So this was kind of, you know, again, I did, you know, so one kind of heavy this week. I'm going to be traveling to California at the time it's recording next week. So, but I did a top single, and I just did some down sets. So around like 163 was the top single. And then I did some lighter sets at 130 pounds. And interesting enough, I feel like I'm a little bit stronger, relatively speaking, on the seated curls with this bar, and then on the Gopher bar, I feel like I'm stronger. So on this particular day, I'm basically doing seated curls as a primary movement, and then preacher curls as a secondary movement. So my kind of idea is to kind of get exposure at more of the mid-range and lockout position with the seated curl for overload, and then also kind of exposing myself in a more disadvantaged position with the preacher curl. And things have been progressing nicely. Again, I'm not at like my all-time best strength really in any particular movement, but I do feel like I'm making some good improvements to my arm strength. And I still need to kind of work on my technique for the strict curl. And, you know, my weight loss is going pretty good. You know, I'm down about like 10 to 12 pounds at the time of this recording, focusing on mostly, I'm not sure if the sugar diet podcast came out or not yet, but you'll hear a little bit more insight on my diet. But I've mostly been going higher carbs, lower fats, and moderate protein. Also, just want to kind of showcase some of Bryn. I'm not sure if I'm always going to be able to get a lot of vlogs with her, but I just want to kind of showcase, again, just some different levels. So obviously Bryn is, you know, she's working on command, she's working on her positions. You know, we have a 15 kilo bar for her, and she's able to kind of comfortably do that for her squats and bench presses. She's getting very close to doing a 20 kilo bar for bench press, which you'll see in a moment. You'll kind of see her doing some work with 15 kilos. But she's, you know, trying to just do things very methodically. She's working on the skills. We kind of keep the volume moderate, and we don't have a ton of exercises. Usually we'll just do like 2 exercises on a day. We usually do a squat and a bench press, and then a deadlift on a bench press on the other day. So I haven't shown a lot of her deadlifting, but you can kind of see a lot of her deadlifting. Deadlifting is her most proficient lift. And then I would say strict curl next, and then, you know, squat and bench are kind of behind that. And squatting is something, this is the first time she'll be squatting in a competition. And again, we're just kind of working on positions, working on holding her back position, trying to have her shoulders. So that was a really good rep for her. Sometimes you'll kind of see her hips shoot back just like anyone else, but we're just trying to kind of make sure she's, you know, staying in her legs. And again, if she goes a little bit extra deep, as long as she's maintaining good positions. But usually we will do a bunch of sets at a given weight, and then kind of like a moderate, not quite an RPE 10 AMRAP, but just something where she kind of pushes the reps a little bit more, so she can kind of get used to straining a little bit and get used to grinding, and just, you know, just build some general work capacity and skill in a fatigue state. But we're really trying to kind of emphasize form. So you can kind of see here, she's not going to get in some crazy arch, even though she probably could. She's not using a kind of a crazy wide grip. So the squat's kind of more high bar-ish. The bench is more kind of close grip-ish. And then the sumo deadlift, she just found that very natural. So that's probably the one lift where she's not really kind of taking a disadvantaged position. But she just feels really comfortable. She's got a great mobility. So I'm totally fine. And it's just going to be a little bit easier on her low back. And you could also kind of see here Sister Lena is just helping. It's just one of the other things that we always try to do, whether it's training in a crew, or family workouts. It's just kind of like learning to work together. I think this is like, it seems like so like obvious and so, but this is like not super common. People do not spot each other. People don't really support each other in person as much, in my opinion. A lot of people just have their headphones on and kind of do their own thing. So I'd love to see more gyms and families just kind of help each other, work together, spot each other, be attentive when they're going, and lend each other some support. And again, there's going to be some workouts if you're doing some sort of endurance training, if you're just getting steps, if you're doing aerobic work, if you are doing, and again, I guess you could potentially run with somebody, but I think it's going to be very hard to keep the exact same pace. It's not going to be as productive with people. Barbell, especially heavy barbell training, having the safety of the spotter, and also you're going to have more rest. I think it lends itself more to kind of training in a group setting, training with a crew. So on my second, so this is my fourth, I guess, workout of the week. So like I said, I'm kind of doing, basically the way I'm kind of splitting up my training is like I'm kind of doing a max effort like lower body. So it's a legs workout essentially. And then I'm doing a max effort kind of strict curl workout, which is going to be primarily, excuse me, I spoke out of turn. Then I'm going to be doing a dynamic effort. So I am doing some heavier sets as well, but typically it'll be more, overhead press focused. So kind of push workout, also doing some lat work on that particular day. Then I do my max effort kind of curl workout, which is again seated curls. And then again, it's just, I'm doing biceps and triceps on that particular day. And then on Wednesday, I'm kind of doing more dynamic effort and just kind of accessory work for lower body. So I'm only really kind of pushing myself on legs kind of once per week. At this point, I'm only kind of loading my spine heavily once per week. I'm also getting a little extra spinal loading from the overhead pressing. So on this particular day, I'm just trying to kind of, just stimulate my muscles, doing a lot of machine work on this day and using the Squat Max MD as my primary motion. And you can kind of see here, this is kind of like one way you can kind of do dynamic effort workout if you're kind of by yourself. I'm doing this, so instead of just doing like instead of doing like a set of 25, I'm just basically doing five sets of 5 in this particular day, and doing kind of minimal rest periods. And then we can kind of fluctuate. So sometimes I might do 5 sets of 5, 6 sets of 4, 3 sets of 8, different things like that. And I might waive the weights and stuff. For right now, I'm really just trying to increase my work capacity and increase my like kind of general power a little bit, and just try to move quickly, but also in like a slightly fatigued state. Because again, weight loss is a goal, and just being, just bringing up some general athleticism is kind of a goal. Again, it may not seem like it, but at the highest level, a lot of these strict curl athletes have really good technique. They're really explosive, and they're really kind of good at manipulating their body and they're around the bar. So I do think that having some, general athleticism is going to be helpful for like my particular goals and just for, other kind of areas of your life. Other things I'll kind of do, I'll do multi-hip machine, leg extensions, leg curls, just kind of general machine work, some ab work, hanging leg raises and things like that. And also I'll be kind of just throughout the week, just for shoulder health, bicep health, elbow health, and grip strength, just some hanging on the pull-up bar as well. That's been something I've been kind of doing quite a bit. So for right now, I think that one of the things that I want to kind of, hit home, I'm saying this constantly. I think powerlifting is great. I love powerlifting. I think that a lot of people should be at least exposed to it. I think there's a lot of value in learning compound exercises. But don't be afraid of doing single lifts, and don't be afraid of, making your own big 3, depending on what your goals are. You don't like whether, maybe you're an athlete. So maybe as a wrestler, you're doing, weighted chin-ups for your pull. Maybe you're doing Zercher squats or Zercher like reverse lunges for your primary lower body. And then maybe you're doing like weighted push-ups or something. Look at some of the calisthenics athletes. There's a lot of other kind of strength sports, but I do think that having some exercises that you're kind of training for performance is important. So on this particular day, this is kind of my dynamic effort curl day. So I just mostly do kind of biceps and a little bit more back work on this particular day. So basically what I'm doing on this day, kind of similar to the overhead press day, I may do some heavier sets here and there. On this particular week, I kind of did my heavy single first, just because I wanted to get like a little bit of a test. And then on this particular day, I kind of experimented with some different chain setup because I don't want to kind of ruin the platform. If you have a wood platform, having chains on it can really kind of, start to damage it. and discolor it. So this is kind of I found a good workaround. Typically I'll set up just one chain in the center if I'm just kind of, curling off like horse store mats or something like that. But this is another, using some daisy. So this is, I think 110 pounds and 28 pounds of chain. Did a bunch of triples here. It felt pretty good. Again, I feel like I'm not nearly as explosive and as coordinated with the OBZ bar. This is also the OBZ 30, so it's a little even more challenging than the OBZ 50, I believe, 55. But this chain setup felt pretty good. And I was getting commands from my wife. At the time of this recording, it's Lena's 16th birthday, so we all got to kind of train together, which was nice, and they all got to work together, so that was good. So here and there, I'll kind of showcase some training from the family as well, because I think it's just kind of important to kind of see. Again, these are kind of my primary exercises, and then I'll, on this particular day, it's like kind of my strict curl is kind of like the main focus for my performance. So I'm doing a little bit more barbell work on this particular day, which you'll see in a minute. But I did 5 triples with, again, 110, and it is approximate because I know I'm not exactly sure the exact weight of the bar. I think the bar might be like 29 pounds and this 2-pound collar, so I'm just calling like the empty bar 30 pounds, but it's a little bit more than that. So did 140, did 150, and that was kind of tough. So I'm definitely like much stronger on the gopher bar, but 150 it was a good, at least I kind of know that's kind of close to my top end. So maybe like, 155, 160 on a really good day might be there. So I got to kind of work on that. I'm definitely, it's kind of, it's definitely humbling when you're going from, doing 175, 180 pounds on a gopher bar and going back to a bar where you're more exposed. So on this particular day, I'm also doing some kind of more dynamic high pulls, as well as some flexion rows to kind of work my back, trying to work both, explosiveness as well as strength in my upper back, traps, and shoulders. So I did a couple of sets there, and I'm also just kind of using a wider grip just to kind of get a little bit more range of motion for these movements. Again, doing a lot of these movements supinated, again, just to kind of work the positions that I'm going to be with the strict curl. And then one thing I also didn't mention, I'm going to be doing this cycle with a bench belt to kind of see how that goes as well. Just so I have a little bit more, I do like having the support of the belt, but I know that sometimes it can kind of get in the way. But I feel like I could brace better with the belt on. After the flexion rows are done, you're going to see some power curls with a wide grip. Again, just trying to get some general form, and I try to get these to about my forehead level. So again, getting a little bit of shoulder flexion as well. And then some more strict kind of underhand upright rows or KP style upright rows. So again, just trying to also so for these types of movements, actually intentionally using a little bit of momentum, intentionally using a little bit more speed, just not only to kind of train the musculature in a more explosive way, but also to kind of get my ligaments and tendons and joints a little bit more exposed to higher speed, higher forces, because I think that's going to be important. Again, from a performance standpoint, now for just getting bigger biceps, I would say you should eliminate momentum, but when I'm doing dumbbell work, cable work, then I'm going to use, basically very little or no body English. So momentum can have its place. You just have to use it strategically and kind of have a purpose for it. But in general, this is going to be a little bit more taxing on your joints and things of that nature. But again, as someone who's, 600 plus deadlifter and things like that, I don't think, again, the lower back strain, and I'm only deadlifting and squatting with the barbell once per week, and also just kind of getting some shrugs in there. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this. I have a lot of time. Mr. America is in October, so a lot of time before I compete. Really just trying to get my body weight back down. I'm almost back, in the 275 class. I'd like to, if I could, I don't know if I'll be 242 by October, but that's kind of like the next kind of goal is to get under 240 pounds by the end of the year. Will it happen by October? We'll see. I'm not trying to also cut weight anymore. I'm just trying to do things in a little bit more of a healthy way, and I don't think kind of cutting a ton of weight makes a lot of sense. So anyways, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong. We'll see you soon.